Story 1. I would stand by my word. I told her she could call me anytime, no judgment. She was a child, and now she is an adult. My word still stands. Story 2. I hope I listen. If my child thinks I am the person to go to when they are unhappy, scared, or confused, then I have succeeded at parenting. Story 3. I would welcome the chance to chat with any of my children no matter the time or reason. I always have time for them. Story 4. I wish I could still call my mother at 2:30 a.m. after having a nightmare. Be grateful your child feels safe enough to call you at 2:30 a.m. Story 5. Thankful we have a relationship where they feel safe to call me whenever they need. I cannot and would not be able to call mine safely, so I am stuck waking up and feeling alone. Be the parent you wish you had. Be the parent that truly supports their child. Story 6. I will always answer and try to help. If it is important enough to reach out, be a safe person on the other end of the phone. Story 7. If my adult child is calling me because of a nightmare, I am going to find out what is going on, because it sounds like there is something more than just a nightmare. That is me personally, because my child does not call, ever. Very tech-savvy, that one. If it is more of a clingy child situation, well, I cannot speak to that, thankfully. Story 8. I once called my mother at around 2:30 a.m. after a nightmare. It was my first time alone in the dorm room during my first semester away. I warned her about something too personal to share and begged her to do something. She agreed at the time but never did. Sadly, my nightmare came true. Coincidence aside, the nightmare scared me enough to call her. Story 9. They probably laughed together about how absurd the phone call was and discussed it until she was ready to go back to sleep. Story 10. I texted my mother at a reasonable time because I had a nightmare where she was standing next to my bed saying my name, trying to wake me up. It gave me a really bad feeling. I couldn't get back to sleep and started thinking something bad had happened in the middle of the night. I'm nearly 40 years old and wanted to call them to make sure everything was all right after that. Story 11. If it is important enough for my child to call me, then I am waking up and talking them through it for as long as they need. Story 12. I am thankful that they felt I was a safe space and trusted me with their fears. Story 13. I will probably call my sister to freak out. My adult twin children died in a car accident a year and a half ago. However, their mobile phones were never found. Story 14. I called my mother crying at 10 o'clock at night a few years ago. My partner was seriously ill. Coronavirus disease was getting serious, and I did not know who else to turn to. She and my stepfather drove an hour to come help without hesitation or question. If I called my mother about a nightmare, she would be there for me, no questions. Story 15. I would mumble, "Give me a second while I grab my ghost-busting slippers." Then stay on the line until they are laughing at the dream. You do not age out of being someone's safe place. Story 16. I would listen to them talk it out. Ask if there is anything else in their life that they may want to talk about that is causing them stress. Tell them I love them, and remind them I am always there if they need me. Story 17. I would answer the call and talk him down from it. I do not care how old people in the family are. If they are reaching out for help, I am going to do my best to assist them. That is what family does for each other. Story 18. My oldest son is a paramedic. As a retired firefighter and emergency medical technician, I am happy that he called me to talk about it instead of bottling it up. Story 19. I am the adult child. If my mother does not answer, my father does. I am a single mother and their youngest, so they worry about me a lot. Story 20. I told my daughter she could call anytime and I would be there. I will keep that promise. I did when she was a child, and now that she is an adult, she is still my child. If she needs her mother will be there for her. Story 21. My daughter is 4 years old right now, so I have to guess. I would love to hear her voice and feel so loved knowing that I am the one she chose to call. Story 22. If they are close, I am driving over. If not, I am talking it through with them and then falling asleep on the phone together, because my child is my child for all eternity. Story 23. I would do exactly the same thing I did when they were younger. Ask if they want to tell me about it. Talk to them in a soothing voice. Help them redirect their thoughts until they are exhausted and fall asleep. Story 24. The same way I have always reacted. Calm tones and allowing them to express themselves. My children are always my children. Story 25. I would listen and then ask if they wanted to tell me about it. If so, I would ask what they thought it might mean or if anything stressful had happened that could have caused a bad dream. Are they safe now? And how can I help? I am a mother and always will be. My children know they can talk to me and call about anything, anytime. I never had that kind of relationship with my mother and made sure to foster one with my children. They are terrific people and have wonderful communication skills that I had to learn on my own. They do better in relationships than I did at their age. It is a good feeling and fun to watch. Story 26. Tell them it is okay now, that it is all a bad dream. I try to distract them with a silly story because that is how I handle things. I let them know they are loved. I live with my adult children, and they come to me at night if they have bad dreams. I do the same sometimes too. Story 27. I would go to their room and sit with them while they tell me about it. My adult children still live at home. Story 28. My daughter experienced a real-life nightmare. A 100-year-old, 100-foot tree crashed through the ceiling of her bedroom in her apartment. Luckily, she was awake in the middle of the night because she is a self-employed artist. She knew I would be awake early in the morning since we are 2 time zones apart. She did not know anyone else to call, so she sent pictures. I was terrified for her but glad she was safe. In one nightmare, I saw my sister have an accident that I can only guess damaged her nervous system. Whenever someone tried to help her, she would say stop, as if she were a toy with a broken voice box and would twitch slightly. This happened 6 months ago, and since then, I have tried my best to hug her every day. I was on vacation away from family at the time and called my dad immediately after waking up to ask about her. Story 30. What is the problem here? I have 2 young adult children. They can call me anytime for any reason. Mental health is not something to be shunned. I would much rather they call me and we talk about it than them ignoring it and whatever is going on not being addressed. Just because they reach a certain age does not mean I am not their father anymore. We all need help from time to time. Story 31. I would say, oh my God, it must have been terrible for you to call me knowing I sleep deeply. Take deep breaths and tell me what you need. Or, don't worry, we are alive. All the pets are alive. What can I do to help you? One of my favorite times of the week is when my youngest calls me on his way home on Fridays. We both usually leave work at the same time and have similar drive times. We talk about the week together. He always asks, who are you going to get angry at this time? I bet it will be foolish people who need to be more mindful. My older one doesn't drive while I am driving, so my coworkers hear a lot of one-sided, strange conversations while I am at work. Story 32. My children are still young, but I would expect something deeper is going on. I would talk with them about the nightmare and ask what else is bothering them. Story 33. I was that adult child once. It wasn't a nightmare, but I had a disastrous experience on a red-eye flight, and I was 4 hours from home. I was maybe 25 years old. I called my parents at 6 a.m., and they immediately heard the tears behind my voice and said they would come get me right away. In the end, I just needed a few minutes and was able to drive myself to their place. Story 34. I'd answer, half asleep. Is the monster still there? Or can I go back to bed too? Then I would probably make cocoa at 3 a.m. and tell them the monster is scared of me. Story 35. Having experienced this myself, my biological father and I are the only parent and child who still communicate. I had a mental health episode where I would have vivid, realistic dreams, making it difficult to distinguish between reality and dreams. This led to several incidents where I nearly stabbed myself. In the dreams, I could not feel pain. I would wake up just before feeling any. On a few occasions, I had to call my father and ask, Dad, tell me something only you know. Story 36. Assuming it is not every night but a once or twice occasion, I would not mind. They care. They love me. If they called, it was because they feared losing that. Sometimes you cannot get to sleep until you know someone is safe. Story 37. I had a nightmare recently and woke up screaming. My mother thought I was being murdered. I am in my 30s and I am still disturbed that it happened. Story 38. My 23-year-old still lives at home and is prone to occasional nightmares. I do not know if I would love a middle-of-the-night wake-up, but I would listen and be there. Story 39. I am a daughter, not a parent, but if my mother called me at any time of the day or night, we would talk as long as she wanted. Story 40. Somewhat related. My adult daughter called us around 6:30 because her boyfriend physically assaulted her. As a father, I drove 500 miles round trip to rescue her. I got home at 2:30 a.m. The next morning, she reconciled with him and somehow found a ride back across the state. She was sexting another man while he was at work. She moved in with a bodybuilder who is secretly homosexual. Story 41. My daughter has some of the most vivid dreams and remembers them. She usually just sleeps them off, but if she does not, I am there for her regardless of the time. We have morning coffee and breakfast to go over the entire nightmare afterward. We analyze it to figure out where it came from. Story 42. I would assume it must have been very disturbing, so I would talk them down and reassure them as best I could over the phone. I will always be there if they need me. Story 43. I would listen. My sons are adults, and if it made them feel better to call me, I hope they do. I know they must be really shaken up to call me in the middle of the night, so I would be there for them. Story 44. My parents would take it seriously if I did that. However, they would probably assume I was feverish, having a panic attack, or experiencing a full mental breakdown. They definitely would not think I simply called for a regular nightmare. Story 45. Somehow I accidentally called my mom at 4:30 a.m. when my phone got moved under my pillow while the bed was rocking. She was very sleepy and confused. Saying hello, I quickly hung up the phone once we realized what the noise was, but she called right back, worried about what was going on. I said, I am fine, just a butt dial, no worries. Parenting never ends. Story 46. After everything my mom and I have gone through, she would probably look at me like I'm stupid, tell me to be quiet, stop bothering her, and let her go back to bed. But then we would talk about it later together. I do not care if you all think it is not healthy. It is the relationship we have, and we love each other. Story 47. I called my mother in the morning when I woke up because I had a dream that we had fought, and she was furious with me. I was very upset and could not shake it, so I called her. She was comforting and helped me feel better. It was silly, but I struggle to shake off really bad dreams. I have done this since I was a child. I am not ashamed that I called. Story 48. I would imagine the nightmare likely involved my death in some way, even if they do not say it did. I would just let them calm down and talk about whatever they wanted to. I would be happy they called me when they were shaken up, regardless of why. Story 49. I ask him or her to tell me about it so we can talk it out. When they relax, I find a way to lighten their mood and make them laugh. We talk until they are ready to try to go back to sleep. If we talk until morning, that is okay. We have time to catch up. I will get plenty of sleep when I am dead. My children are more important than sleep. Story 50. I am not a parent, but I am an adult who has called my mother after having nightmares so intense that I woke up either in the middle of a panic attack or on the verge of one. She answers and stays with me on the phone until I have calmed down. I would like to think that I would do the same for my children. For reference, I am 28 years old and my mother is 61. Story 51. I am surprised nobody is saying they would freak out. My mother would be scared out of her mind and wonder if I am calling from the hospital or something like that if I called in the middle of the night. After reassuring her for a while that nothing happened, she would be there for me, but she would definitely freak out first. Story 52. That actually happened to me as the adult child. It was after Hurricane Katrina, and I had a horrible nightmare that my little brother was drowning. He had died a few years before, and the entire graveyard was at least 6 feet underwater. I just couldn't get the image out of my head of him as a kid in a box slowly filling up with water after I woke up. Story 53. I would be honored that they felt safe enough to call me in the middle of the night. I will always be there when my children need me. Story 54. I cannot imagine doing this unless they were very shaken up. Of course, I would be glad they called. Once the moment of panic passed, phone calls at 3 a.m. are never for good news. I felt relief thinking, thank goodness, just a nightmare. I would then talk to them as long as they wanted to stay on the line. Story 55. My daughters are welcome to call me anytime they feel the need to. If I can comfort them, I am honored to be the one they choose. My daughters both live outside the house now with families of their own, but whenever I can be there for them, I will move heaven and earth to do so. I have the same relationship with my mother and my father when he was here. Story 56. I would talk to them and comfort them because they were disturbed enough to call me in the middle of the night. If it was happening all the time, I would say, we need to figure out why this is happening and how we can help stop it. Story 57. Not an adult, but past that level. If my son called me with that, I would probably think it was a prank at first. If he was serious in the assumed context, I would deal with it. If it was substantial enough, it might be treated specifically as such. Less serious cases might include some playful banter eventually. Dead family members, for instance, are serious. Scary clowns would be treated as playful teasing. Story 58. My mom wouldn't care because she loves me. She even calls me sometimes because of a nightmare she had. Usually, the ones she calls me about involve me, and she is making sure I am okay. Just because we get older doesn't make us immune to fear and the ways our brains torture us. Story 59. I am not a parent. I am an adult in my early 30s. I think my mother would answer the phone and be upset, but she would listen to a very small degree. She would probably try to say, but it was just a dream, as soon as possible to tell me to be quiet, grow up, and handle my emotions myself. I have nightmares frequently, sometimes daily, about wanting or needing to be in her childhood home. My grandmother's house where I also spent much of my childhood. The family no longer owns it since my grandmother's death about 10 years ago. In the nightmares, I get caught, usually involving some kind of drama where I am guilty of breaking in. Whenever I bring it up, there is the same strained, barely concealed tolerance as I talk about it, trying to work it out. If I brought it up in the middle of the night, that patience would be almost zero, but might still last for about 30 seconds. Story 60. It depends on the child's behavior throughout their life. With my kids and their track record, I would be worried. Of course, I would try to calm them first, and once they were calm, I would want to discuss what they remembered and what upset them, as this would be unusual behavior for them. If I had kids known for attention-seeking through similar behavior, I might not react the same way. Parents get frustrated with their kids' nonsense just like anyone else does when someone who should have their life together doesn't, and it impacts them somehow. They might react more coldly than a parent normally would. Story 61. It depends on the situation. If it is routine, I would suggest the child see a counselor. As a parent, you will not always be around. Your child needs skills to be self-sufficient. Also, if this is routine, nightmares can be very distressing. They are scary, disrupt sleep, and affect health and employment. Again, I would suggest counseling. However, if this is a rare occurrence, just be there to talk to your child and listen. Those are the moments you will cherish. Story 62. I'm in my mid-40s and called my mother the night before my first colonoscopy because I was nervous about it. I only did it because I know she appreciates it, and my wife thinks it is funny when I act like a mama's boy. Story 63. My oldest child is 14 now and beginning to find her independence. If she called me because of a nightmare at any age, I would pick up the phone and help her through it. They are children their whole lives. I do not care how old they are. They are children. Story 64. The one likely to do so, I would ask him if he was okay, if he was still in bed, and if a glass of water would be good now. If we were under the same roof that night, I would ask if he needed a hug. The kid less likely to do so, I would ask if they wanted to talk about it and suggest self-care options. Story 65. I would groggily listen, talk them down, and send all the virtual hugs they can handle. Honestly, those moments when I can be their person are the ones I live for. Story 66. I am a full-fledged adult and I will still call my father when things go wrong or when I need a pep talk. If I called him after having a nightmare, he would find a way to make it funny, and then we would laugh about it. Story 67. My poor mom. I go through this too often when the bad medical issues flare up. Me, first things first, put the phone down, get some water, and go pee. It's late, so I bet you need to pee and drink water. Take care of that. I'll be here. Then I let the child talk as much as needed, told the child to get comfortable and under the covers with the TV on, and I stayed on the phone with them until, and for a while after, they fell asleep. Story 68. Groggily assure them and tell them to go get a glass of water. Once they have drunk that, ask them what they dreamed about and if they actually remembered. Ask if they thought it related to anything they have going on. Hopefully, they will fall asleep before they answer, but if not, you can talk about all that and how awesome they are. Then, encourage them to go back to sleep, just like I used to beg when she was a toddler. Story 69. I can answer that. I am the adult child, though. I remember very vividly a few years ago, when I was 25, I had a horrible nightmare where both my mother and boyfriend died. It was also so vivid, I woke up in tears to my boyfriend soothing me. However, he had to get back to sleep because of an early morning, and I was nowhere near ready to sleep again until I made sure my mother was okay too. So I got up, went to the living room, and called her. Middle of the night, asleep, she picked up on only the second or third ring, and I couldn't help but sob in relief when she was okay. We spoke for an hour or so, and my mother never said anything about being tired, needing to get back to bed, or anything. She just listened and talked to me, calming me down enough so I could get a few more hours of sleep before I had to get up. I love my mother. I know she would do the exact same thing again if I ever needed it. Story 70. I would listen if they wanted to tell me or just sit with them and talk about anything else. Stay on the line quietly while they tried to fall back asleep if they needed. Maybe sing them a childhood song that is lullaby adjacent and makes them smile. Or I would sing Soft Kitty with the naughty words if it was really bad because they never quite know when to expect the slip up, and they get the giggles. Story 71. Same as most people here, let the child vent and reassure them. Offer to come over if logistics allow. Once or twice a year, my mother has a nightmare about her children and she either calls or texts, depending on the time, to just make sure we are okay. One time when I was working nights, she got my shift mixed up with my sister's and called her at 4:45 a.m. to check if she was okay. My sister answered, confused, confirmed she was fine, and then went back to sleep. Mother then called me in the late morning, forgetting I had just gone to sleep myself. Mother was very apologetic afterward, but we found it very wholesome. Story 72. I have both an adult daughter and a son. My kids call me in the middle of the night when they just need a mom moment. I answer and completely work through it. I am actually up right now because my daughter is flying back home, and she is overwhelmed from her flight being canceled. The next 2 flights were delayed and then canceled. She finally had no idea what to do when they found a flight that leaves tomorrow night. So I called the airline on a 3-way call, had them change everything around, and got her on a flight leaving shortly with a 1-hour layover. That is still just 1.5 hours longer than her nonstop flight. As a mom, I'm not even thinking about sleep now. I helped her figure out what to do in a situation like this. She just needed to contact the airline and work out other options. They need to accommodate you, as it is their responsibility to rebook her on a flight that works best. So here I am at 2 a.m., knowing she is on the final flight home, able to get 2 to 3 hours of sleep before I need to pick her up. Don't ever feel like your child calling in the middle of the night is a bad or annoying call. Story 73. This is a great question. I have more friends becoming parents recently. My wife and I take it seriously. We want to foster a sense of security in our children when they are young. I am not sure how it will go when they grow up. I asked artificial intelligence to provide a more comprehensive reference and found an interesting application that can turn random questions into a podcast. Maybe you can check it out. Here is the episode it generated as an answer for me: Midnight Calls and Grown-Up Fears. Navigating Nightmares with Adult Children by Anson Huang. Story 74. I'm not a parent, but I know my mom would listen to me tell her what the dream was about. Then tell me to take a teaspoon of water with a little sugar. Then turn on the faucet and tell the dream to the water. I don't know where it came from, but that's a tradition my family does. The idea is that the water holds the nightmare, and it goes down the drain and out of your mind. Story 75. I'm just saying, if it is bad enough that he or she needs to hear from one of us in the middle of the night, it must have been terrifying. Also, it may have been about their own children and they just needed some support that they think only we can offer them. Story 76. Not a parent yet, but honestly, I would always be there for my children no matter how old they are. Did you have a nightmare? Tell me about it while we sit in the kitchen at 3 a.m. and I make us some tea. I remember when my parents stopped caring about me having bad dreams. I felt so alone and developed some pretty bad sleeping habits as a child. I even tell my fiancé to call me if he has a nightmare and it is bothering him, even if it is the middle of the night. I leave my phone on always for him. I will always be there for my loved ones, especially my wonderful fiancé and my beautiful future children. Story 77. Not nightmare related, but I have a panic disorder and moved across the country. My mother is the only person who can calm me down so quickly from a panic attack, and I still call her whether it is 7 p.m., 4 a.m., or noon. She answers most of the time and guides me through breathing exercises on the phone. Anytime I mention a nightmare to her, her first response is always, "Why didn't you call me?" Story 78. As someone with trauma, nightmares can be very intense. If I had children, I would like to think I would be loving and willing to listen. I let my sisters vent about bad dreams when they need to, and I always will. Story 79. I would listen and let them calm down, but I cannot really imagine it happening for real unless a night terror or other condition is known. Story 80. Reading some of the other comments makes me feel a little bad about this, but I would probably laugh. Then possibly get concerned that it is more than just a bad dream and investigate further. Story 81. When I moved out, my parents told me that I could always call them or drive home if I needed to, no matter if it was in the middle of the night or on a random Tuesday afternoon. A few years later, I had a bad nightmare about something happening to my family. I woke up and was so distraught that I called my parents at 3 a.m. to check in with them. My dad picked up, listened, and assured me everyone was fine. I felt really silly and apologized multiple times for waking them up. He told me there was no need to apologize, that he loved me, and that both my mom and he meant it when they said I could call them around the clock. I want to be exactly like that if I ever have kids. Story 82. Frankly, I would welcome the call. I do not interfere in their lives, but I love that they still call for advice, help, or just a chat. Story 83. All these kind parents. Mine would 100%, without a doubt, tell me, "Seriously? Go to bed. This is ridiculous. I have to work in the morning. What the heck?" Insert my name a few times. I could place high bets on that quote. Story 84. I called my mother when I was alone and having a bad psychedelic experience. I was 20. She stayed on the phone with me until my roommate came home. My child will always be my child, and she can always call me for anything, no matter how old she is. Story 85. I would talk to my child. Nightmares can really affect a person. Additionally, there is probably an underlying issue causing them stress that I will discuss with them the next day. Story 86. I will do my best to answer the phone whenever my children call, regardless of the time of day or night. If they call because of a nightmare, it means they are genuinely upset, and I will listen for as long as they need and reassure them as much as I can. I am far away from some of them, so if I remain concerned after the call, I will call one of their sisters the next morning to see if she can check on them. Their brother still lives with me. Alternatively, I will call my sister-in-law, who is close enough to provide comforting adult hugs. Story 87. Take the call. Then laugh to myself if the dream is not tied to a chronic mental illness. I mean, what else am I supposed to do? Story 88. My parents and I silence our phones at night. What happens at night is not my business. Call emergency services. I am not a doctor. We can talk in the morning. Story 89. Was your mother or I dead? No. Then go back to sleep and do not call us in the middle of the night unless it is an emergency. Story 90. As the adult child in this scenario, if I called my mother after a nightmare, she would spend however long I needed talking to me to make sure I was okay. Then she would text me probably every couple of hours for the next few days. Story 91. Tell them to go back to bed and buy a coffee in the morning to talk about it. They have grown now, so they will have to buy the coffee if they want to complain about something. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.